Do you know what the best thing to come out of Iowa is, Todd?
No.
I-80 West. Hello and welcome to Best Motorcycle Roads. I'm Tom.
And I'm Todd. We have over 65 years of combined motorcycling experience and 30 years of planning and riding motorcycle trips. We're here to share with you everything we've learned over those years.
Our goal at Best Motorcycle Roads is simple. Make your next motorcycle trip the best it can be. We'll dive into technology, planning, packing, routes, and everything in between.
From essential prep to unforgettable routes, we've got you covered.
Before we kickstart today's journey, we ask you to sign up for our BMR Rider Alerts. It's our way of keeping you in the loop with the latest rides, tips, and stories. We promise no spam, only the essentials to enhance your motorcycle adventures. Join the BMR crew today. We'll put a link in the show notes. This segment about motorcycle gear reviews and tips we call the Toolkit. Let's talk tire plug kits and inflation.
All right.
Not the money kind, but air inflation.
That kind of inflation.
Yeah, in every toolkit, I mean, you're going to find people out there that say never plug a tire, right? Mm-hmm. That's dangerous. It's a motorcycle, save your life. Well, that's great, but I don't think you should write it back on the rim either. So, I think at times in emergency situations, we'll leave the other times off the discussion, but you're going to have to patch a kit or plug a tire once in a while. So there's a lot of different ones out there. I had recently ordered one from AeroStitch. That Duluth company makes pretty high quality things. Usually you can buy just a full tire repair kit. So what comes with that is the plugs, the glue that you kind of add on there. There's kind of a reamer that you ream it out with, and then a funky hook to get your plug in there so you can get it out. There's kind of a little escape hatch. So that all comes with it. And then now kind of the new kits, instead of, people used to carry an inflator, like a full-on inflator, like 12 volt, plug it in, like fill it up inflator. And I think that's still the case. There's some really high quality ones out there. The time, I think, is why people slowed to doing that and kind of moved to the CO2 cartridges. So this kit comes with the plug kit plus CO2 with like an adapter to put it on the valve. So basically what you end up doing then is get that done, get it up to snuff. You don't maybe get it completely crazy. You get to the next stop where you can check your air and fill it up at the right levels and everything like that. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of the thing now. I mean, they're in the $40 to $60 range, but boy, oh boy, I mean, you've been involved in a motorcycle trip where you guys had to get to a shop to repair it. Luckily, even they did it the next day. Yeah. This is one of those things that at least get you a couple days down the road and things like that. So there's an AeroStitch is a high quality one. There's also one off Amazon Dynaplug tubeless tire repair toolkit, both in the same range. Both include all the things that you need to do to get to them. So it seems pretty straightforward. I
haven't had to do that yet. Have you?
Me either. No.
Knock on wood.
Yeah. And one of the things that's a good tip too is if you have bad tires on your bike, I would highly recommend you try it too, because looks great. Looks
like a practice
easy.
run, you mean?
Yeah. I would do a practice run sometime. You want to be super careful. Sidewalls are never a place you want to really get too crazy about. Again, emergency situation, you might have to do some things. But yeah, if you would happen to be taking your bike in to get the tire fixed, it would be a good idea to just go ahead and drive a nail or a screw something through your tire, because that's what happens. Try plugging it and see if you can get it to plug, because it's a little bit of a, just like many things, you don't want maybe have it be your third time, and you can put a couple of them in there.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, it works well.
Yeah. RideWise is the section we focus on planning and safety tips. For today's RideWise, we're going to talk about gravel roads. Because we have a lot of gravel roads in Iowa, and sometimes we've got some places where a paved road will suddenly shift to a gravel road without much notification.
Right.
And you find yourself on, doing 40 or so miles per hour, and all of a sudden you're onto gravel. That can be a little scary, especially if you haven't ridden your motorcycle on gravel before. The sensation when you get onto gravel, if you have to, is a real floating sensation. Like
Right.
the bike doesn't feel like it's planted on the road in a track.
Like it's rolling around on marbles.
Right.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, it is
is.
on marbles, right. So it'll really start to float on you, the front tire and the back tire kind of going in different directions. What you need to do really is don't panic to start with. Don't be heavy on the gas, the throttle. Don't be
Right.
heavy on the brakes, but kind of loosen your grip on the handlebars and just kind of take it slow. You can pin the gas tank with your knees
Yep.
and maybe get up on your feet a little bit just to, because it's going to be a little bumpy. But then be real smooth with all your actions. And I would look for the track where car tires
Yep.
have been. So, if you can get to the left or get to the right, just find that more packed down area. So it'll feel a little more like you're on a solid surface. And then, again, just real gentle on the throttle, gentle on the brakes. I wouldn't even use the front brake,
Yeah.
in most cases. And you'll still be able to control it. And then, if you do have to come to a stop, just, again, be careful as you're
Yeah.
pulling away, because a motorcycle tire will spin real quick in gravel. So, just look for the spots that have been, driven by cars and trucks and that, and you'll see those packed down areas.
Yeah.
Stay out of the very center, and that, the center of your lane, because it kind of builds up a little taller right there, and stay away from the shoulder, because it'll be a real loose in that area.
Yeah.
And then, your best bet is to always have your helmet on, have some gloves, hope you've got your thick pants with maybe a knee protector or whatever, but some elbow pads in your jacket. Anything else, Tom, that you can think of?
I think, if you're cornering, if you're going through corners, I think it's good to kind of be leaning forward. You want more weight on the front than the back. That's giving your front tire more weight, so it's more traction, and the back tire gives it a little more loose. And then I guess I was just going to mention too, it's not just gravel roads, especially in the Midwest. There's a lot of chip seal roads in Iowa.
Oh, yeah.
And, they repair them in the summertime when we want to ride motorcycles. And the repair is spray down oil and put down, it's smaller gravel, but it still can be dangerous. And a lot of times those patches are happening in the corners. So,
Yeah.
And it seems like the last 10 years, they don't even put up a sign that says that there's,
Right.
patched road ahead. So
That costs too
you
much
come
money.
up fast on it at times,
Yeah. And you can have this situation if you're in a state that gets snow.
Yep.
Because they plow in
Yep.
the winter, and then they'll sometimes get off to the shoulder and throw a bunch of
Yep.
gravel into the road. So especially in the spring, early spring, when you're out riding, you can all of a sudden come upon some gravel on the road,
yeah.
on a paved road that'll have gravel on it
Yep.
because the snowplow has tossed it up there. So until a lot of cars have driven and pushed it off, or rain, you can come up on some gravel just on a regular paved road.
Well, and like you said, I mean, no one likes to take their bike on gravel, but if you have a bike that's a little easier to clean, like just getting out on the gravel and riding a little bit, it just helps.
Yeah, practice a little bit. Yeah, no, that's a great idea. And in this episode, we're going to talk about some gravel roads that you might have to use if you wanted to go see the bridges of Madison County.
Exactly.
So in that case, you may have to go practice. It'd be good if you did. It's not nice to get your bike all full of gravel dust, but...
And two-up riding is even more tricky, higher center
yeah.
gravity, just now you're trying to stop on a gravel road, put your feet out. I mean, it can be touchy.
It can be a little sketch. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
The next segment is what we call the mile marker. It's our story segment. In the mile marker today, Todd, we're going to start episode 1 of a 6-part series, which talks about the top 5 best roads of Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Minnesota. So 651. 165. I don't know. But no, yeah, I'm kind of excited to talk about this. I mean, of course, these will be a little controversial. Everyone has their opinions of what the best roads are. For that, I would say comment below and let's argue about it. Because the more roads that we get to ride, the better.
Yeah.
But if you've never really rode in Iowa, the landscape, I guess, is like the weather, right? If you don't like it, go 10 miles. I mean,
Yeah.
Iowa has to have some of the most diverse terrain in the country. It's got to be top 5. I mean, we have plains that are just as flat as can be. I know up in north central Iowa, I've been up there and I'm like, what's that light up there? Oh, that's this town. It's 20 miles away. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Where we live over here in eastern Iowa, you can't see a mile without a tree or a hill getting in your way. But, and then as you go towards the Mississippi River, it's bluffs and, it's not a mountain. I get it. It's not, but it's very, hilly, windy, tight. And then in southern Iowa, it's the same thing. And we'll talk about one unique thing that only Iowa has in one of the parks on the west side. So, yeah, I guess let's dig into what we think the best ones are. There were so many, I threw in a bonus one, Todd, and that was the one you mentioned in the Ride-Wise, the Covered Bridges Scenic Byway. Madison County, Iowa is famous for the historical bridges. Bridges of Madison County. That also happens to be where John Wayne's Birthplace Museum is. And when's the best time to ride? I think fall. I feel like I repeat myself as we go, but fall.
Yeah.
Just because the leaves, are turning in it. It's just a beautiful thing. Other tips just for this section, and I'd like to hear what you think too, but just photos, you see them on the internet with these covered bridges, they're cool. There's some of these bridges, though, that are only on gravel roads, which you mentioned. I've never actually been down there to see them. Have you?
I've just seen one. Otherwise, I've seen pictures, but I've only gone to one.
Yeah, so they're cool. I mean, it's kind of a neat thing. I know that there's places where you can read and learn more about it, but it's just an interesting, cool, kind of quirky thing that's down there. Number 5 is kind of another unique thing from Iowa. They call it the White Pole Road Scenic Byway. And what this is, it's not a really long stretch of road, 26 miles or so. But they originally called it the Great White Way. It was the early 20th century highway, Highway 6. And what they did was the headlights of vehicles were so bad back then, they actually painted the light poles white so that you could kind of stay between them. Because I think also, if you can imagine, the roads at this time were not much different than the not roads. I mean, it was just the place most people drove.
Yeah.
That's Adair County. Jesse James Historical Site is there, and then there's a Freedom Rock for the county. Mendo's Freedom Rock was really cool. A lot of counties in Iowa have Freedom Rocks, and they're kind of painted uniquely for that area. I would say spring and fall, again, just kind of avoid the heat. There's nothing technical about this at all. It's almost straight. And again, like it's short, but there's a lot of neat little places, historical sites along the way. And another thing is, if you're just traveling through the area, this is literally probably less than a mile north of Interstate 80. So it's a nice, maybe slowing it down, just kind of taking it easy trip that someone can do there. So I've traveled this before. It's cool. I mean, it's kind of just nostalgic, and again, nothing super special about it. But it was just like when you see these poles, you're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense.
And do they keep painting them?
Yeah,
they do. They do. Okay.
Well, I'm pretty sure that the poles that we see now are not the poles that were there then, and I'm sure that because they're pretty wide, they're pretty out, but it's kind of the thought of it. You kind of just get the idea.
Yeah.
I've never drove it at night, but I'm sure that you can definitely they light up. Our number 4 pick for Iowa roads is Historic Hills Scenic Byway. So this is actually in southeastern Iowa's. They call it a very historic and picturesque area. It's not. It's just where kind of the hills start as you get to the river. But some of the neat things to see here is Lake Wapello State Park. There's a historic district in Bentonsport, and then American Gothic House is actually located down here. You see a lot of American Gothic in Iowa since that house was originated here, but this is the one. So to see the original. The best time for this particular area is in summertime. There's some like local events that happen, so you can get involved. But this used to be a really heavily traveled area, the Stagecoach. So that's in Franklin. And then they have there's the Hirschler Winery. So what's really neat for me when I go into these areas is the like Amish and Mennonite businesses. There's a lot of heavy Amish and Mennonite people that live down there. And so just look for the cheese and fresh pies, homemade pies.
Yeah.
Always a great thing to see. But
furniture.
Oh yeah, that would be more difficult to get on the bike, but I'm sure they would ship it to you. Number 3 is Les Hills Scenic Byway. This is kind of like, I know before we've talked about the Driftless. This is kind of like Western Iowa's driftless. It's the most unique thing that you'll ever see. So what is Les Hills? In Western Iowa, in that river valley, it's just a very unique landscape. And what it is silt, I believe they believe, is from the glaciers that melted and laid in this area near the river. And then in the winter times, there'd be a little less winter, so then this silt would get windblown, and it built up what looks just like like the bluff areas that you've seen everywhere. But what's really weird about it is you're driving through, and it's just all dirt, earth, black earth, all the way up in this, and you're just like, huh. It's the weirdest looking thing. I mean, it looks natural, and then you see it, and you're just like, no, that's just dirt, And from what I've understood, this is the only place this has ever happened in the world. There's no other place that it's happened. So not a lot of towns, not a lot of action out there. It's just a good ride. And so Preparation Canyon State Park. There's a nature center in Hitchcock, and then there's Pisna is a little town that's there. Like I said, this is all about the scenery. There's nothing to see here except these wild-looking hills. But bring a camera because it is interesting. It's winding, and it's weird, the path it takes. And then I've never stopped there, but it looked like Dave's Old Home Cafe in Pisna was a place that you could maybe stop and get some more information about the area.
Yeah.
There's a historical marker in the town of Pisna as well.
So this Lus, is it Lus or Los?
I think it's Lus.
Lus, okay. Yeah. And it's spelled Loess.
Correct.
Lus.
Yeah,
Lus.
Yeah. Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Our number 2 road is one we've talked about so many times, a great river road, of course. Easy to find. Look for the Mississippi River. Stay on the west side, because we're talking about the top 5 Iowas of Iowa. But just a great mix of river views, charming towns, and we've talked about it a number of times. The lock and dam systems are just amazing. There's a National Mississippi River Museum, the Effigy Mounds National Monument, Native American area, and then Pikes Peak State Park is also at the very top of it, and that is quite a view as well. Again, fall, that's scenery, weather is better, and just watching for the wildlife. There's tons of pull-offs on the Iowa side to stop and see, and little towns here and there. You're weaving in and out of some pretty neat places, and some pretty good bluffs in some of those spots.
Yeah,
I know one year when we were riding through, there was a little bit of a landslide that looked like maybe a house was going to get taken as well. So
yeah, you can see eagles.
Oh yeah, a lot of eagles. The eagle population has really grown.
Yeah,
and they're helping with that. So
yeah.
And then our number 1, maybe not the best. Longest road for sure, but it's maybe the best unknown road in Iowa. And technically it is kind of started the Great River Road, so it was a little bit of a cheat. But C9Y. There's a church just north of Balltown. There's about a quarter mile from that is where this officially starts. It's only 13 miles and eventually turns into Iowa 52, which is officially the Great River Road. But boy, we've rode this a couple times. I've rode it a few times. It's a very unique road. It's just a beauty.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
The views are amazing. It winds a lot. The condition of the road itself,
it needs a little help.
Yeah, it needs a little help. It wasn't the best paved road.
Yeah, it was a little bumpy.
It might have been concrete too.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember, but the condition of the road needed a little work, but it's fantastic.
And I would say it's like the perfect motorcycle road only because it's not like Tail of the Dragon, tight corners. I mean, it's a workout. It's hard. You're thinking. It's just the most relaxing 13 miles of motorcycle road. Just sweeping curves and nice. And oh my God, look over there. There's the Mississippi River.
Beautiful scenery.
We're 75 feet above it, and then pretty soon you're right by it.
Yeah.
It's just cool.
Yeah. And what time of the year do you ride that one?
Well, fall, anytime. Yeah, I mean, it's just fall. I mean, you are literally overlooking tens of thousands of trees on the Wisconsin and Iowa side, and you just can't help it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just awesome.
And there's not a lot of pull-offs, if I remember correct.
Not on C9Y specifically, before it and after it. But again, it's only 13 miles. So.
Yeah.
I don't even think there is one. But by Balltown, there is a beautiful pull-off that's just iconic. The podcast can be found on bestmotorcycleroads.com/podcast. all the information you need will be there. But you can subscribe on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple, Pocket Casts, and YouTube.
This is the interactive segment. We will be looking for input from you. We want you to send us your questions and suggestions for roads, topics, and anything else you have on your mind. Today's Roadside Q&A comes from Pat. Pat was asking if we do any adventure riding in Iowa or the surrounding states. I don't have an adventure bike myself, but you have.
I've had one. I'm a terrible rider, so therefore it kind of kicked me out.
But while there is some in Iowa, I would say the majority of adventure riding is probably over in Wisconsin, right?
In the Midwest, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a couple of groups that are that are Iowa. ADV is maybe another way they say it. I know over by Sully, Iowa, there's a group, and I think there's another one. Maybe it is Wisconsin. There's a lot of guys that'll do gravel rides in Iowa. Like when you think of ADV in Iowa, it's mostly gravel riding. Some level B. So Iowa has level B. Basically, it means non-serviced. It's technically a road, but they don't grade it. They don't gravel it. It's just basically a mud road. So some guys will ride those as well. But yeah, there's some more up north in Wisconsin for sure. But yeah, there's some groups of people. A lot of people ride ADV, bikes. And there's some fun roads. I mean, there's some great roads in Iowa that are gravel. I know out western, and I don't remember exactly where it is, but there's a gravel road, and then in the middle of this four-way intersection is a big old tree, and I forget what the name of it is now, but you have to do a research on gravel road, Iowa tree in the middle of the road. It's kind of a quirky thing, but it is definitely out on the middle of a gravel road, and we talked about the bridges of Madison County, gravel roads. Some, some of the river roads around here, there's some extra roads that are gravel that are really cool. And then there's a lot of places to camp in Iowa that are off of gravel roads as well, if you're into that ADV camping. I mean, then there are some private trails that people work on in Iowa to ride ADV on. So they'll have a ride, and some will be down gravel, and then some will be on private property that they get permission to ride across. So, yeah. There's a lot of options.
Yeah.
It's just scary for me.
Right. Pat, I hope we answered your question.
Now it's time for the last mile. It's kind of how we close out the episode and talk about what we liked, maybe didn't like about the episode. Todd, what do you got for today?
Well, I think in the very first place in the mile marker, you were talking about the Freedom Rock.
Yes. And
that got me thinking about all the counties in Iowa. There's 99 counties in Iowa. I don't think they all have Freedom Rocks yet, but that's the goal. Right. That would be kind of just a fun ride if you ever, veterans. These Freedom Rocks are being painted by one artist, and so they move these giant granite boulders into each of the counties, and then he comes and paints, and it takes him a week or something. And they're all done with veterans in mind and that kind of stuff. Cool. And they're really neat. If you have the time and kind of want to set up a route, that might be a lot of fun just to go see the Freedom Rocks in the counties. We have one in Johnson County. We do. Happens to be here in Solon.
Yeah, they're really neat. I think each one of them works with the local veterans to kind of make it that county's own. Like I think, which is probably the coolest part about it for me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And how about your reflection?
A couple things. I think just the Luss Hills is cool if you haven't seen it. I mean, it's easily something that you can plan a route through. It's not a destination, but if you can get there sometime to see it, it's really cool just to see how that works, or how that has worked over time. And then I think, as I think about just some of the uniqueness in, Amish and Mennonite are not unique just to Iowa, but there is a lot of cool Amish and Mennonite folks. And what I find most interesting is when I run into them, when they're out and about, they're just always fun to talk to. They're curious people. They like to talk. They're not hidden or silenced or anything. It's just fun to learn about them and what they do. So if this episode revved up your day, don't keep it to yourself. Like, subscribe, and share it with your crew. We're all about the thrill of the ride and the bond it creates.
Keep the spirit of adventure alive, and remember, bikes, friends, and endless roads, the stories ride forever. Take care.